Hi, today my sermon title is Understanding the True Grace. And the passage that I'm going to share from is John chapter 8, verse 1 through 11. It says, But Jesus went to the mountain of Olives, and at dawn he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away on one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left. With the women still standing there, Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Women, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I. I condemn you." Jesus declared, "Go now and live your life of sin." I got married not too long ago. It's been 1 year since I got married to my wife, and so it's still hard for me to imagine how I would feel if my wife cheated on me or vice versa. Although we're not sure what happens in this story, whether it's about husband or what happened to the man who was involved with this very act of adultery, but the story goes like this. So the problem arose to Jesus while he was teaching. The Pharisees and the teacher of the law bring women who was caught in adultery. And this let's focus on caught in adultery, and it's very humiliating thing, getting caught when you're doing something wrong. And I still remember when I was in elementary school, and the internet was starting to get developed, and one day my dad called me to his room, and he just shared, "Hey Chris, I found these inappropriate pictures of women on the computer, and what happened." At that moment, I was just so humiliated, and I just couldn't explain. It was like I just made some excuse. I said, like, "Dad, that wasn't me. Some random people messaged me. I didn't want it, but they sent it anyway." So I started to make a bunch of excuses, but I was sweating inside. It was very shameful, and then I was overwhelmed by the guilt, and there was a little pain involved with it, just thinking that I let down my parents. So here the women, not once again, the man is not present, but she got caught in the very act and put before all this, in front of all these men, and that must be a very humiliating thing. She probably was crying. But we can ask question, and was the adultery same during that time? Because now, like you hear the story of people cheating on each other, and how the husband is not faithful to their wife, and we see this everywhere. But how was it in the Bible, in the era of this time? In Old Testament, and the punishment for adultery was death. In Leviticus 20:10, it says, "If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and adulteress are to be put to death." This This law is about, and this law and others concerning sexual immorality in Leviticus 20 are tied in the the promise of God that made to Israel. God made it so serious about this law because Israel was God's holy nation. They were God's holy people. So God wanted them to be set apart from all the other cultural things that are going around from the countries that are surrounding them, which was the adultery was not uncommon. So God wanted them, no, you guys are not going to do the same thing. So here, the passage for this passage, it was not about belittling the adultery. It wasn't saying that adultery was not the problem, but it was actually a very serious problem. But the message that he tried to deliver was much bigger than them. So, to that problem, for the resolutions that the Pharisees or the teachers of the law, what they brought was actually the law of Moses, actually stone such a woman, and that's what they address. Their resolution was, okay, so she did something wrong, so she should be punished. We gotta bring justice here. But passage indicates that their actual goal was not justice, but they say they wanted to trap Jesus. That's their very motives. So how terrible the terrible motives was that? They had to. It was about dealing with one person's life, but yet they used that against whatever the motives they wanted to be satisfied. But for them, it was about whether Jesus is he gonna disobey the law, or is he gonna not show the mercy? It was for the trap. But for their resolution, it was, let's just kill her. Can you imagine that moment for a second? I mean, I can imagine their determined face of religious leaders, and they're probably mocking inside, just thinking that they got Jesus this time, But how about women? And she knew that she did something wrong, obviously, probably at least for this moment. But what she faced in front of her was not just, the harsh words, but it was more than just expose of the sinful behavior. But it could mean the last moment of her life. But their goal was to destroy Jesus. So they brought resolution, but obviously it was not complete. So their resolution, Jesus say something that just overcome or just overthrown whatever their resolution that they came with. It was about, he said, anyone without sin, throw the stone first. So to this trap answer, Jesus didn't reply as, okay, you should violate the law of Moses, or you should destroy this woman. And so they could argue both ways, but Jesus gave a radical middle. He said, anyone who is without sin, they first throw the stone to her. So in that way, Jesus was not, like Jesus said, he's not fulfilling, or he's not destroying the law, but he's fulfilling the law. He's making complete. No. It's not just about, just killing her. It's not just about punishing those who wrong. It is about grace. It is about mercy too. And look at you. It's look at your hearts. Or are you any better? And in another passage, Jesus also mentioned it is the person who look at other women lustfully, they committed adultery. So they're all guilty in Jesus' standard. So that's what he wanted to prove. And Jesus' answer was both satisfying, mercy, and just at the same time. So he did not go against, but he gave the perfect answer to get out from the situation. But for that their resolution, he proved that it was failed. But what kind of resolution that Jesus provided? What was the message that Jesus tried to convey through this passage. So this is what happened after Jesus' response. People started to leave, and everything seemed okay. So they felt probably guilty after this. So they, one by one, from old to young, they all left, and everybody left. So if Jesus' point was about not getting caught or just getting out from the situation, the story probably ended here. Everything seemed okay now. There's no people who are accusing or trying to kill her. But Jesus had the greater or more profound the message for women and for us through this passage. And Jesus could say, okay, everybody left. Did everybody leave? So they didn't. There was no one who had the authority or without sin. And Jesus could say, I am the one. Okay, now it's my turn to throw the stone to you guys, or to you women. But to the woman, the one who had the very authority to throw the stone to her, he didn't say, I condemn you, but he did completely opposite. He said, neither do I condemn you. And he said, go sin no more. We face many the controversial issues in this secular world or this society right now. We deal with lots of different sins. We call it sins in the Bible, but things that like abortion or homosexuality is very controversial, but it's very hard to tell other people that this is wrong or this is not right. This is not what God wants. It's very hard to have that kind of conversation. But this passage actually, the conveys of hearts to God. This last thing response that Jesus gave was very hard that I believe that God wants us to put in as a practice. And it is not just about affirmation. The gospel doesn't stop. It is okay. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to condemn you. And just go live the same life that you desire. It doesn't stop that, but gospel, it doesn't end with affirmation, but always gospel it leads to the transformation. Jesus' word or Jesus' gospel, it doesn't want us to remain in the darkness. It is okay because I'm light, you can remain in the darkness. It doesn't say that. But because I'm the light, okay, I want you to come out from the light. And that message was what Jesus was telling the women. It's not just about not getting caught by people. It is not about just following what says in the Bible. Well, did you do this? Did you not do this? And Jesus wanted to show grace. At the same time, He want to transform life through His light. And He want the women to continually walk in the light. And I think not only for us, I think when we face other people who are walking in the darkness, and I think this is what we need to really remember. Sometimes we say the harsh words or we just judge people, and just don't do that without really putting grace and love into it. And sometimes we just put just a grace and love without just really correcting them or just guiding them into the light that God desires. And I believe, and what Jesus wants us to do is just find that very radical middle, grace and be transformed. Or through the grace, be transformed. And I believe that that's what we can do through the power of Jesus. And I hope that we can apply this in our daily life as well.